Otsukimi here. Who else would it be? This is the Bitcoin brief for May 22nd. Hope you've had a good day. The markets have reacted pretty well. We had kind of a back and forth going on at the beginning of yesterday, the past 24 hours, I should say. Kind of recovered about the same time stocks closed, actually. And then it's kind of covered pretty well ever since. I think on the daily here, I'll go back to the 2 week because this is really important. On the daily, I believe that we got our first close. We got our first touch above all-time high, but I think we still that was our top close anyway. I'm going back and forth. It doesn't really matter. A lot of this is semantics because currently we're trading at about 101,000. Pretty significant, okay? And it looks like we're going to come down maybe a few dollars here, but pretty historic right now. I think a lot of people were really in disbelief, which was absolutely crazy. Our group has been, my Aaron Pro trading group has been in here really ever since 75,000 roughly, or not 75, like 78 or so, and so we've managed pretty well. And so overall, the sentiment, I thought was, with the tariffs and everything, I thought that was just a little over dramatic. I thought it was just too much, and honestly, like it's a trigger now when I see the sentiment just completely over panicking. And I learned this with COVID, by the way, that something's wrong, right? So when everybody's panicking about something, you need to look at the terrain and see how you can take advantage of that. And so I don't like this quote, but when people say, when everybody is fearful, it's time to be greedy or something like that, and then the inverse is also true. When everybody's greedy, it's time to be fearful. Not really. I don't pertain from a moral standpoint like fear or greed, but I understand the sentiment. When everybody is just panicking, ready to sell, I think it's time to look for opportunities to try to buy that opportunity. And that was the mainstream idea with buying pretty close to the low. I believe my publicly traded Bitcoin was like 80,000 and 83,000, which what it was. Now it's at 111, and so it kind of works well with that. So anyway, that's actually just the introduction. So for Bitcoin brief here, as you know, covering Bitcoin, it's going to take about half the video. The other half is going to be Ethereum and Solana. We'll cover that. For now, I'm not going to cover any other coins. I want to, but I got a little bit time restraint for now. So mainly going to focus on Bitcoin here right now. So I have the 2 week chart open. Don't really talk about it too much, usually for observations for the Otsu videos. But I noticed we have a channel on here, and they're looking pretty good. This is your base right here from the downward move of 68,000 to the bottom about 53, 54 or so. That was back September of 2004. Like, we're trading double from September, and would anybody would have guessed that? Especially when we retrace half of that back, and not even like a couple months ago. And so that's what's really crazy here, is that really from the closing bottom to current price, it's about 102,000. And then from the closing price of the recent drop was 34,000. And so it's pretty interesting. But we've maintained this channel, and it's looking pretty good. We actually closed the last 2 week candle roughly at the mid. We have about 3 or 4 days left to go on this channel, or this candle for the channel, looking pretty good. And I think this is a good basis. First of all, this is a bullish channel. Second of all, it gives us an idea of how to manage this trade. So if we go up completely on this candle, the highest that we can go without going super parabolic is 124,980 or 940, basically 125,000. And so there are a lot of people, and a lot of people that I respect actually, that think that we won't go past 120. And I think this is a good way to measure that. I do think 120 is conservative. Now, I think 120 is great, but let's take a look at it. Like, and I'm talking about the top, by the way. A lot of people think that the top is like 120, 125, but if you look at this here from the 120 marker, it's only like less than 9%. So let's just say 10%. We'll max it out. Say there's a wick or something like that. That's pretty low. Like, so if you're telling me that we only have 10% left in the market, what's the point of this? And so that's where I would come from. If I knew that the top was at 120,000, we do have a div in play on the 2 week chart right here, because you have your high here, your higher high on this channel, lower lie here. So this is your divergence, right? So we are in a divergent situation. Now it is low on the spectrum on the RSI, so it may not have an impact, or it may do something like this, where this, because this was also divergent here, because you did have a little bit of higher high there, lower high here. It could consolidate back into the band. We could see as low as 84,000, or it might come up a little bit and maybe go to the top side here, like mid 90s, I'd say. So, but that all being said, knowing that, like, if I knew for a fact we only had like 10% left to go, I would not even be trading right now. I really wouldn't. I don't think the markets are so weird right now, and I don't think the markets really reflect the bullishness. They're still about 50-50 on the bears to bulls right now. I think it's slightly bears even still. I think a lot of people have woken up to the all-time high sense and all that, but also there's still a lot of people that think that we're going to go down. And it's the same people that think that, well, we this topped out, we're going to come down. This topped out, we're going to come down. It's going to go more and more and more and more. And that's the problem with bears in general. That's why I'm not a perma bear. I'm not a perma bull either. I tend to be more almost. I'm about a couple shades lower than a perma bear. But the reason I'm not into the bearish situation, and the reason I'm that way on the bullish side, is because Bitcoin's a bullish asset. Okay, I used to hate Puma bulls, and I still kind of do. I'm not a big fan of them, but one thing you can say about them is that they've been right about Bitcoin this whole time. And so, and I'm not praising perma bulls. I think they're very disrespectful in a sense. I think they can cause you to lose a lot of money, but I think perma bears can cause you to lose a lot of money too. My point is, because I'm rambling, so I apologize. My point is, we need to think optimistically. Bitcoin is an optimistic asset. We have hit another all-time high since I've been here. I've been here like basically 2017, 18. I distinctly remember this. So you had one here, you had another high here, 2, 3, another break here, 4, 5. Now we're on our 6th all-time high. And you could maybe just condense this into one. So we've had 5 major peaks here. And so continuous candles of all-time high, right? And it's very interesting. We can also take a look at some other things maybe another time, but I think 120 is too conservative. And I think this channel proves that that could be the case. And we can certainly zigzag here. There is a chance that we could, let's say the next candle here, we go up to like 126, 127, and then we come back down to like 110 over the course of, let's say, the summer. And then we rally hard, right? And so what I want to look at here briefly, and this is more just theory, I want to map this out right here. And so this little marker right here, I want to mark that out. See if I can do oh, I hate how they changed everything here. Let's see. I guess this will suffice. We'll do an arrow. I thought I had like a green one or something. I guess that's a green one. I don't know. Kind of wasting my time here. Oh, here it is. Arrow marker up. So this confluence right here. So where the line meets the bar. And so we take the price action, start there, and go all the way up to the top. You're looking at 151. Okay. So this is where this comes in. This is where the channel really has to come into play, because one, we have to stay in the channel to an extent. Like, this is the new context that we're looking at. Now, the only way that we can exit this is that if we go parabolic, if we to the upside. If we go to the downside, cycle's probably over. I would say, I think that's a pretty good guesstimate, that if we do break the cycle to the downside, unless we get an immediate fake out within the next 2 candles, 3, maybe 4 at the most, that's the end of the cycle. With this, however, we can still go up. So I think, and look at the marker here for this confluence. It's basically at December. Okay, so I can see us breaking this, like breaking at 150 here, and then continuing to rally. And this is where this Fibonacci block comes into play. I'll get rid of this for a second. Clean this chart up. So I apologize. I know I'm rambling in this video. I do have a point, and I'm sorry if I'm just not coherent. It's really late where I'm at. I've had a busy day. So I'm looking at this fib block here from the top top to bottom here to the extension from the previous top, or the next high, is roughly about 3.618. So you have a golden ratio to the third. And so if you make that, I'm not saying this is accurate by any means, but if you do that same application from the top to bottom to the new top, it's going to be 206,000, and basically $300. Now, this would line up if, let's say, the next candle or the next 2 or 3 candles, we go parabolic, we hit that marker, okay, and then guess where we land? We land somewhere between the next candle will be January 5th to February. So within a 30-day period in January. That matches up with a lot of things that we've done in the past, especially 2017, where we kind of mapped it out in December, and whatever. The top up here, that was a little bit early, about November. And so that is possible, right? And so I'm not saying that that's accurate. I'm not saying that that's something that we should be doing. But this is the theory that we're looking at. Because now, a lot of you have asked me in the past 2 years, like, Otsu, like, where's your all-time high thesis? And I've always kind of mentioned, well, I don't have one because we haven't gone to all-time high. Well, now we have. Now we have gone to an all-time high. Now I'm looking at breakout retest. I'm looking at trend, trend moves should be your number one priority right now, because we are not range bound. We're not range bound anymore. So don't think range bound. You can think range breakouts on lower time frames that lead to trends. But trends are going to be where you make your money. Trends are always where you're going to make your money, unless you're just like some super elite price action trader, like range bound. That's why I'm not a big fan of people like Trader XO and things like that anymore, because they those types of habits. And I'm not saying anything about them, but those guys are range bound traders. That's what I'm saying. But range bound trading is a very limited scope. And because things are limited scope, there's limited money to be made. That's also why perma bears are also problematic, because there's limited downside. Therefore there's limited probability, and then they get pissed and depressed because they can't make much money. And it's like, well, if you just flip to the bull side on one of the most bullish assets that we've ever had in human history, you would probably be a little bit happier. I'm just saying. Like, I don't understand why people just are so fixed on being like the opposite. Like, people just want to be contrary just for the sake of it, and then they wonder why they're just sad and depressed all the time. Like, you just make some money and be happy, honestly. And to be honest with you, like, something like the 50 EMA and the 21 EMA, when things get trendy, are one of the easiest ways to try to make money. Okay, the last top that we had up here, I remember this, and I distinctly remember. I think it was here. Yeah, it was right around here. So we didn't. We still went up to all-time high, but roughly from here to here, I was on vacation. I was in Florida. We spent a lot of time, spent a lot of money too, but I was trading on the go. I was driving. I wasn't texting. I was driving, but like, I drove from the Midwest to Florida, and we spent, I think, 11 days on the road. I was trading, and I was making more money just EMA trading in a very trendy market than I ever had been for the past couple of years prior to that. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. If things are trendy, if things get hyper bullish as we think that they will, then you need to take it easy. Okay, it's not always easy, but it is simple, if that makes sense. So you got to understand there is a difference between being simple and being easy. It's not necessarily easy because it takes discipline, but it is a simple idea. Anyway, that's the kind of thought process I have with the channel. Okay, so enough of that. I rambled way too long about that, so do apologize. I'm going to go to the daily here and look. This is a position that I looked at in the last Bitcoin brief. We're going to revisit this. This was your upgraded position here. Okay, and then you could also... I'm going to modify it to actually current price. What I probably would do, I'm comfortable tightening the stop here to about 5%. So it's a 3R position with about 14. I'm going to increase it just a little bit, 309, about 15% on the profits, about a little less than 5% on the stop loss. So that would be a high leverage trade. So I don't always, leverage trades can be tricky. So just be aware of that. But this is not looking too bad. Okay, the divergence here is actually nullified, which is another thing. I was looking at this from a bear div. The bear div got invalidated, and that's really cool because now I can look back at the upside again, look at the upside potential. We have a lot of good green today. I think that we could retrace here when go to stocks open, but I still think this looks pretty good. And so the main thing I want you to know is that one of my favorite traders of all time, from yesteryear, I should say, is a guy named Darvis. And he's famous for Darvis boxes, which are basically just breakout trades. And this is a breakout trade. This is a Darvis box trade. I absolutely am obsessed with Darvis boxes. The only problem is I don't get a chance to use them because they're only for breakouts typically. Now, this is a breakout, and I honestly think we're doing pretty good here. Like I said, I think 127 is conservative. Just be mindful of this channel that I'm looking at here. And so you can play this to your advantage. And I always spend a lot of time on this channel, but I do think it's worth it. If we break parabolically above the channel, I do think that is the last run. I absolutely think that's the last run of the cycle. So be aware of that. I do think that you, at the most, you're going to get one good chance left to add on with size. Okay, you might get zero. You might get zero, and that's why I said EMA trading is probably going to be your best risk to reward ratio on this, because EMA trading can still dip with the trend. So you can pick back up on the trend, and maybe it's too trendy on the 2 week and the 1 day and all that. Start with the 1 hour, okay? Because this looks like it's going to trickle down, right? So if it comes back down a little bit to like 107, and you can look at the 100 EMA on the 1 hour. And then if that flips, look at the 100 EMA on the 4 hour, and then the 6 hour and 12 hour and 1 day. So you can kind of scale that up. That's how I do that, by the way. So if I'm trying to get in, I look at lower time frames and then I ladder up to higher time frames. So just an idea there. But I would not fade this at all, even if this does fade, because you need to also look at this from a different perspective. Let's see, this is Coinbase, this is Binance. Let's look at another. That's neither. Let's do Bybit here. If this comes back down, and I'm focusing on the weekly in particular, if this comes back, first of all, it had to come back down to 100, little under 103, so like 102.7. That would count as a deviation if it comes back down, and so that's a very strong sell signal. But you would have to wait until 102 and some change to do that. So don't be scared that this is some high price. Because we have not deviated yet. I absolutely am not fading this. I don't think this is a wise thing in that regard. Now, this also gets adjusted here for the... let me see if I can do this. Here's wrong one. For the SHAB block. Now, it closed underneath here, so we still, for the daily, we still have to close above. And so keep that in mind. If we close above, then this is full breakout. To be honest with you, I would absolutely, let's say we closed here, stop loss right there. You have the same pretty much stop loss there. I am not afraid to target that 150, get that 7.7 R for 35%, and working that out. Now this isn't the best trade because it is high leverage, but that's what you got to work with here. But again, it's a breakout trade, Darvis box. It looks pretty good. And so I spent quite a bit of time on Bitcoin. So let's go to Ethereum here. It's kind of pushing up against the band. I've mentioned this before. I quite like this trade. I think this is a valid signal here, about 3.1 at 53%, 17% stop loss. I think this is pretty good. If you wanted to make this a little bit tighter, you certainly could. Add the midline to that at about 10%. I think that looks fine. And then, and I'm not really focusing on 4 hours. I guess I could. But this is actually a pretty decent reaccumulation period. You get the tick up here. It might come back down a little bit to about 2,500, but then if we breach above this high, really just the whole high of this 27, let's say 40, it's going to break out, do numbers. So just keep mindful of that. I'm going to set an alert for that just in case. I think it looks pretty solid. Let's go to Solana here. Solana, it's kind of doing similar to Ethereum, but it is a little bit lagging here, and I think this is a concern. I don't think Solana is just ready yet. the one reason I'm also excited here is Ethereum is actually moving for basically the first time in the cycle. And so I think Ethereum is going to take some presence here. If you're in Solana meme coins, which I am in, I think you are still early. That's one reason I am in Solana meme coins, by the way, is because I think now is the time to get the better risk to reward. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but I am saying you might have that better risk to reward and front run retail. Because if retail really gets here, first of all, Bitcoin, Ethereum is going to go up. But then when Bitcoin, when the hyper bull market gets here, everybody's going to altcoins, and then you might be able to take advantage of that. So just keep that in mind. Nothing really here to talk about long signal wise on Solana. I think it's just kind of a pass for now. So anyway, that is the video, quite a bit. So I hope you enjoy it. And again, I apologize if I was too all over the place. It's been a hectic day, and so just a little bit tired. So I appreciate you watching. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. I just got over 300 subscribers. Looking to get that 500 to get monetized, and that would really help me because it would help me continue to do more videos. And so really appreciate you all. If you're looking at this on X, go ahead and follow me if you aren't. But either way, like, you could check out my Aaron Pro trading group. It's on Patreon now. I switched from WAP to Patreon. WAP's just not doing it for me anymore. Patreon is the way to go. You get your first month for half off. I would love to have you. So thank you for watching. Have a good night.